I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I guess Happy Medium Day is what we should say. I want to thank Medium, everyone there from John to Harrisako and all of the editors and all of the teams and Tony for inviting all of us here today and for inviting me today to speak and to be with you. I'm Julio Vincent Gambuto. I've been writing on the platform for about 8 years now. And all the things that Tony said this morning in his keynote were kind of all the reasons that I started writing on Medium. It was clean, it was modern, it was dignified, it didn't look like a Vegas casino. So thanks to Tony for pointing that out this morning. I just published my first book with an imprint of Simon & Schuster called Avid Reader Press. It's called Please Unsubscribe, Thanks. It's all about our lives now, our modern life, our digital economy. I'm not here to talk about that, but I do want to just ground this in an understanding that this is my first book. So I want to acknowledge that. And as I walk you through the book proposal, talk right now, I want you to know, a couple of things. Like, first of all, I wanted to focus on the writing and the publishing. Thanks, Sandra. I love the book title too. I wanted to focus today on writing and the writing process, mainly because the Medium community has been so good to me, and my book only exists because of my experience on Medium. And so I thought this would be a really practical and valuable way to spend this time with you. So a couple of notes before we jump in. I do have a presentation, but I want to give you a couple of notes. First of all, book proposals differ. They just differ. There's no one way to do it. What I'm going to present today are the really core elements that you're going to see across successful proposals. A lot of what I'm going to say sort of comes from conversations I've had with my editor and with my agent about what was successful about mine that led to the book. So I want to give you as much of that experience as I can. So feel free to ask about that in the Q&A. I'm also available by email, and I'll give you that email address if you want to get in touch. This is a talk for all writers. I write nonfiction. Nonfiction and some memoir are sold on proposals, not the actual manuscript. Novels, short story collections, those are really sold on the actual manuscript. You've actually got to go and write the thing. But so many of the questions that you'll ask yourself in the writing and in the writing process of writing a proposal are questions that are really, really well worth knowing the answers to, no matter what genre you're writing in. Next, so this book is with a traditional publisher with Simon & Schuster. I wrote an ebook about 10 years ago that I self-published called Freelance Heaven. So I know the experience of both. And so I just want to let you know, if you're here and you are looking to write a book with a traditional publisher, good place to be. I hope you get a lot out of today. If you are a self-published author or looking to self-publish, the process is really valuable. So even though you may not craft this document and then hand it over to an agent or hand it over to an editor or publisher, the process that you'll go through to get to the end of the book proposal is really, really valuable, because it helps clarify what the book is about, who it's for, the tone, the voice. All of those things are really part of the process, whether you're self-publishing or publishing through a traditional publisher. So, I had kind of wished I had done the book proposal before the ebook, because it really would have helped clarify a few things. Great questions are coming in. I'm going to come to them at the Q&A. So keep pouring them in if you'd like. This is a process that you should go through, and you can go through with or without an agent. I got my agent directly from Medium, or I should say from my Medium work. I got to tell you, I have worked out in LA and in Hollywood for the last 15 years. It's a really different sphere and a really different ball game. I find book people and literary agents to be so much more respectful of the writer and of the writing process. Happy to answer questions about that. But I will tell you that my agent and I worked on the proposal for 18 months. I must have written 16 versions of this proposal. Everything changed. The title changed, the content changed, the focus changed, the premise changed, the sample chapters changed. So don't be afraid of that, would be my advice. Don't be afraid to ditch it and start over, to craft, because what you're really doing is you're starting to write the book. And so it's all really an important part of the process. And my agent was able to say, hey, this is just not ready, or yep, that's the one that's ready. And I'm really grateful to her for that, because she knew what was going to appeal to editors and publishers in a way that I didn't in the beginning. So whether that's an agent or someone else who works in editorial or works in the publishing industry, or if it's just a friend or someone in a writers group with you, get another set of eyes on it, get feedback, see if what your intention is really on the page or not, because you want to make sure that that it's effective, right? So let's jump in. Hold on one second. I have to share my screen with you, I think. Yes, I do. All right, so I'm going to appear a little on your screen. What will appear big is this presentation. I don't want to bore you with slides, but I do want to give you a really hefty overview here. So if I hit play, I don't see. Okay, great. Can you just do me a favor? I'm going to hit play and just make sure you can see it. So if you can tell me in the chat if you can see this or not, it should say how to create a successful book proposal. Do you see that? I know I just took it away, but oh, when I'm sharing, I don't see the chat. Okay, sorry, I'm a little tech inefficient here. Okay, so a couple of things. Let's just start off by saying, this is me. Feel free to get in touch. I love being a resource for people as best as I can do it with my bandwidth. I like teaching. I like speaking. I'm at juliovincent.com. Yeah, great. And that's my email. I'm happy to give it to you. Please don't abuse it, obviously, but it's there for you to get in touch. And I'm going to be coming out with a whole bunch of writer resources at the end of this year and in 2025. But for right now, everything today, the deck and the video, I'm going to post in the readers resources section of my website, which is at that link. And I'll put this in the chat later so you can take a look at it. Okay, basics of a book proposal. First of all, the book proposal is a business plan, right? It's not necessarily, well, it is a showcase of your best writing, but it's also a business plan for your book and for your writing. So it's a sales document. And I want you to think about that as you think about approaching it and crafting it, laying it out, understanding what's in it. Not only are you showcasing your writing, you as an incredible writer, but you're really showcasing the idea and the project as something that is marketable and sellable. You're answering questions like, what makes your book special and unique? Why should readers buy your book? Why you? Why now? This is a super Hollywood question. I found it is exactly the same in the publishing industry. Why are you the writer for this book? And why should we publish it now? Why? How does it speak to the cultural moment? How does it speak to what's going on in the world? It's about 25 to 45 pages, no hard rule, double spaced Times New Roman 12. Just to give you some context, mine was 56 pages, double spaced, about 16,000 words plus sample chapters. The reason I say that is that I'm a highly visual person. And so the first time I was thinking about putting this together, I had like a sample book cover that I had designed myself and like big fonts, and no one cares. In fact, they don't want that. Agents and editors want the written word on a piece of white paper that they can read and appreciate and understand, that you're going to connect with readers through your words, not through flashy visuals, not through, something that you made on Canva for your cover. So keep that in mind. So this is how we went from the book proposal on the left to the books that are out now in Barnes & Noble. The original book proposal was called A Book Proposal for Please Unsubscribe Thanks, A Guide to Life and Capitalism, How to Win the Battle for Your Behavior and Free Yourself from the Bullshit of the Modern World. It obviously became something slightly different. Just to clarify, this was the final book proposal, not the first one. This is like where we landed in the end, right? So it had 5 major sections: the book, the market, the author, chapter summaries, and sample chapters. So if you can see that graphic on the right, that's what it was. Double spaced Times New Roman, like you were in school, right? Just really simple, really straightforward. So I'm going to go section by section. I want to show you what's in it, and then I'll wrap up and we'll do some questions. First was the book. So this section had introduction, book summary, narrative organization, key takeaways, and the format and delivery. So introduction mine was about 4,000 words. Doesn't have to be that long, but I wanted a full introduction. I've never published a book before. I wanted it to really sort of grab attention. in a good way and be thorough. This is an introduction to the project. Keep that in mind, right? This is not the book's introduction as you would publish it. You're talking here to the editor and to the publisher. That's who your audience is really for the whole proposal, but specifically for this introduction, right? You're not really talking to the reader. The introduction to my book proposal and the introduction to my book are actually very similar because they sort of are the origin story of the idea of the book, but just keep in mind that that audience is different. And it showcases your voice, right? From the first line to the last line of the book proposal, I should know as an editor or as a publisher, who is this writer? What's special about them? And I should hear it in that voice. The book summary, mine, all these numbers at the top for how many words, those were just mine and my experience, but I want to give you some context and some parameters for it. Again, not a hard, fast rule. Book summary is like, what is it, right? And be really clear. It is a nonfiction book. Like, yes, you should write that, right? Like, this is a nonfiction book, and mine was a nonfiction guide to a happier and more meaningful future. From the beginning, they should understand what shelf is this going to be on at the bookstore? What section is it going to be on in Amazon online, right? You want to be really clear about what it is. Which books is it like? This is not an in-depth discussion of that, but rather just like this book meets this book. So mine was Atomic Habits meets The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. In the end, I don't think it's actually those two books specifically, but they keep using that and we keep using that in the way that we talk about it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there at the moment, but you should do some sort of comparison like that so that people can understand, okay, oh, it's this type of book. What are the major themes that are in the book? And just remember, this is sales language, right? This is, and what I mean by that is a good way to approach this is to go look at books that are in this genre and on that shelf and look online and see how they pitch the book, right? Every book summary online, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, that's written by like the publisher and the editor and the agent and the author. And so it's a little bit more marketing speak. Happy to talk about more of that later. Narrative organization is about 400 words. What is the narrative arc? What is the story here? What's changing from A to B? What is the journey that my readers are going to go on? Even for nonfiction, right? They're going to go from not understanding this to understanding it. They're going to go from not having insight and history of this particular topic to having that knowledge and history. Whatever that might be, this is the place for that. And it's a short description of each part of the book. And then chapter titles for each chapter included in that part. Again, this is not a hard and fast rule. This is how I laid out the narrative organization. But editors are looking to see, are you paying attention to structure? Do you have an understanding of how the book is going to be structured? And tell us how that's going to work narratively. And then the format, key takeaways, about 300 words. What's the reader going to take away from your book? These were bullet points. They're going to take away this. They're going to take away this. They're going to take away this. I had no idea how important this was. In every conversation I've ever had with my editor and publisher, it's all about what is the reader going to take away. And for my book in particular, that was about 100 pages of history and economics and social commentary. The second half of the book is really about takeaways. People or the team really wanted like really easy, digestible things that readers could do to make improvement in their lives. So this is really important. And then format and delivery was just one sentence. How many words is it going to be? When are you going to deliver it? What's your due date? The market section had a section on audience, one on competition and comparisons, and one to answer the question, why now? So this was about 500 words. It addresses who's your reader, what's their life like, what will this book do for them? How will it be valuable to them? Why will it be valuable to them? Competition and comparisons. By the way, I know I'm going fast. I just want to give you as much information as I can in this very short session. Competition and comparisons was about 550, and it was a discussion of all the other key books in this genre. Like publishers want to know, editors want to know how they're going to sell you. How are they going to make you different and unique in this space? So it's worthy of a discussion of that. These are the other books in my category, in my genre, on my shelf. This is why this one is great. This is why it's like this one. This is why it's not like that one. Really important to situate yourself within that framework. And then why now, right? People want to know, why do you want this book to go out into the world now? What part of the cultural conversation are you addressing? And if you're not, if it's something that's timeless, say that it's timeless, say that it's evergreen, right? The book process is long. So from the time you write the proposal to the time it comes out in bookstores, for me it was like 2 years. And now with the paperback, 3 years. So it's a long process. So you'll hear that word evergreen, you'll hear that word timeless because publishers want to make sure that when it gets on the shelf, it's still speaking to the cultural moment. Can you predict that? No, absolutely you can't, but you can address it and discuss it within the proposal. Next section was the author, background, voice, promotion. This is who are you? What's your expertise? Why are you writing this book? And what is your background? Why does your background make you really the only one who can write this book? Really key question here, right? Like, why are you writing this book? And why is it you who's writing it? That's really going to illuminate what's unique about it and how they can sell it. And also for you in the writing process, craft-wise, what you lean into when you're writing the book. Voice, super important. Describe your unique voice. What is your voice? So I want to share with you from my proposal what this looked like. These were the first few sentences. Please unsubscribe, thanks. Expands on my essay, which was an essay that I wrote on Medium called Prepare for the Ultimate Gaslighting. Please unsubscribe, thanks. Expands on my essay while keeping its unique tone, relatable voice, and mix of social critique, political commentary, best selfism, and sparks of spirituality. As a kid from the boroughs of New York City, the son of a school bus driver who went on to graduate from the Ivy League, my voice is a combo of highbrow and lowbrow. It's a Yankees cap meets seersucker. It mixes intellectualism with straight shooting. It uses humor to be real, but explains tough and complex concepts so that all readers can follow along. So it's really weird to talk about your own voice, but you've got to do it. And you've got to show why it's unique and why it's appealing. And then you hopefully have demonstrated that in the rest of the book proposal. Again, I'm moving quickly here. Promotion. What are you going to do to promote the book? This is really key to publishers, right? Especially since so much of this, look, it's on them for sure. It's their product ultimately, but it's your book and your name is on it. And so, this is an important part of the process. And, are you going to have a website? Are you going to teach classes? That's appropriate, obviously, for some books and not others. Who are your contacts? Who are your VIP contacts? Who can you reach out to? Who are the influencers you can reach out to? I hate that word, but I'm using it. And what will your personal outreach look like? What's your social media presence? Again, I hate it, but it's important. What press have you gotten in the past for your work? And then some advanced praise, which is quotes from 4 or 5 authors or leaders in the field. This was really hard for me, right? Because I reached out to people who were my friends who were writers, but they weren't necessarily writing in this genre. It's really helpful to get people who are writing in your genre. And in that way, I kind of reached out over the internet and found some folks who were really, really helpful. The last 2 elements, and then I'll wrap up, are the chapter summaries and the chapter sample chapters. Chapter summaries. This is a summary of every chapter in the book. I did 500 words per chapter. This is what's going to be explained, described, researched, discussed, et cetera, in this chapter, then this chapter, then this chapter. Again, you're writing the book in the proposal, and everyone wants to know whether it's fully developed or not, and if you really know what you're talking about, and all of the above. So these are really important. And again, these are summaries of the chapter. And then sample chapters. So I included 4 chapters. Some agents will say 3, some will say 4. My understanding thus far in this process is that this was a good number to include. And then I included the original essay that the book is based on. So really quickly, and then we're going to do Q&A. Looking back, what made it successful? This is obviously my perception through conversations with editors and publishers, and who eventually became my team there at Simon & Schuster. It was polished, it was clean, it was professional, it wasn't hastily prepared. My agent made sure it was not hastily prepared. We took 18 months to do it. What is the unique take, right? It had a unique take. A lot of people talking about the internet, a lot of people talking about the digital economy. I specifically zeroed in on the subscription model, and the book is really an analysis of how that's affected our lives in the modern world. I think the mix was important. My book is opinion and social science and philosophy and memoir. That can be a little confusing. And for a publisher, that can be hard to sell as well. I think looking back, this at least opened up a conversation about how to sell it and was effective, because it was unique. The voice, again, a lot of conversations I've had with folks who have read the book. What's appealing is the unique voice. Again, it's about the written word. Really appreciated that everybody, that the proposal was not something flashy and oddly put together, but that it was done properly. And the point was to make them invest in you. And lastly, I want to say that, yeah, my essay was a really big hit on Medium, but my Instagram was 2,000 people at the time. So I don't want to mislead and say that it was all about social media presence, because it really wasn't. In fact, the publisher said, I'm not even sure you can move or capture all those people who read the essay and then market them in the book. So it wasn't really about, I had sort of proven my voice out, but I hadn't really proven the ability to sell thousands of copies, right? So I wanted to note that. Obviously, I could talk about this all day long, but I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go to questions. So, okay. Will this recording be published somewhere? Yes, it's going to be published. All the Medium Day videos are going to be available at mediumday.com. I'm also going to put it on my website in case you want to go check that out there. I'll also put this presentation that I just went through. I'll put that on my website too, so that you can download that. I want to make sure that you have access to it, because this was me speaking at like 1.5 speed. Okay, I'm going to scroll up and go through questions. Hellos, hellos, hellos. So glad you're all here. My husband has published a trilogy that hasn't done well. Could he post a chapter on Medium to get more exposure? Great question. I just worked with my editor to get permission from them to post the introduction to my book, which went up last week or 2 weeks ago when the paperback came out. And it's done really well on Medium, and it was a great introduction. Personally, as a writer, I say yes, use your means of promotion, however you have them, to promote your work in a dignified and respectful way. But it depends on what the publisher says and what was in your contract about what you can repost where. So I would just check with them, Julie. Vanessa, how do you self-publish? I thought you always had to do it with a company. I'm sure there are plenty of folks who self-publish on Medium, and even here in this room. So I would say it's a really big question to answer, but there's a ton of platforms online that will let you upload your manuscript, lay it out, design your cover, drop ship, print it. There's all sorts of things like lulu.com and Amazon, and there's a lot of self-publishing avenues. So I would encourage you to do as much research as you can on the internet. And I apologize, I'm not going into more detail, but it's a really large question. That is great to know memoirs are sold on proposal. I'll start submitting now. Just so that you know, my next book is going to be a memoir, and I'm working on a proposal for it now, and it includes a lot of sample chapters. And I had a conversation with my agent the other day where she said, you might have to write the whole thing if it's your first memoir. So I would start to engage in the proposal process so that you have a really clear understanding of it all and of what the book is about. But I would be prepared if somewhere along the way someone says you should really write the whole thing. How did you get an agent? I want to be open about all of that because I find it's really helpful. In the movie business, nobody's open about it, and it's really weird and odd. I was approached by someone who was looking for Medium writers at the time. And she is a wonderful woman named Julie Stevenson. And she emailed me and then called me, and we had a really great conversation about my work on Medium. And she said, have you thought about a book? And I said, yes. And we're not out of time. No. And we went from there, and it was really a wonderful conversation. And so she came after me. I know that sounds like, oh, that's not helpful to me. I get that. I've gone after so many agents in my life, whether it was for my film work or for my book work. But query letters and emails are really important. People actually do read them. I've spoken to a lot of agents who say that they've read my query letters. They're not looking for anyone at the moment, or they've read my query letters, but they didn't think my work was ready. I mean, I've gotten rejected so many times from agents. Some get back, some don't. But it's worth looking them up, looking who they rep, finding out what books that they've worked on, and approaching them directly via email if you can get their email address online. Does your talk apply to CNF books already written? and you were looking for an agent or publisher. My sincerest apologies. I'm not sure what you mean by CNF, Natalie. Uh, Maybe I'm blanking, but wanted to, if you want to put that in the chat, I can come back to it. Hey, Tony, great talk this morning, if you're still here. Um, uh, Oh, Julie, I see that we actually went through a publisher, but they weren't really helpful. Um, I don't know if this is like the official or legal response, but like I would just put it on Medium. If someone tells you to take it down, then you take it down. But you know, it's your work, and I believe your contract should say that the copyright resides with you. So at least mine does. Proposing nonfiction books. To Wen saying, no, this is for yes, the answer to that question is yes. Fiction, you have to write completely. Do 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 do. Looking for more questions and I'm going to squeeze every second out of this half hour. Did you get an agent from an early draft of a proposal, and did you give it to them? How involved were they? So Raceland Allen's question was, did you get an agent from an early draft of the proposal, and how involved were they? She was very involved because this was my first book. She was really motivated to sell it, but it changed so many times because it comments on politics, it comments on modern society, and that was changing so fast in 2020 that I would like write a proposal and then none of it was like even relevant like 3 weeks later. So we rewrote and I rewrote it with the agent multiple times. You need writing from other sources, background critics. How many pieces would be required? Laurie Brandt, I'm not sure if it's a matter of, Laurie's question is how many pieces are really required before you start submitting. I don't think it's about how many pieces you've written on Medium. It's more about like, what is the book project? And can it be, you know, is it marketable? Is it sellable? Is it good? Is it appealing, etc. So I'm going to stop for just a second and just do a time check. It's 2:59 Eastern. So if you are scheduled to go to another session, I bid you farewell. Thanks for being here. Great to have you. Again, this will all be on my website and also at mediumday.com. And if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. I will just keep answering questions and I'll go another 10 or 15 or so. But I don't want to take away from Medium Day. So if you have other sessions you want to go to, please do. All right. Erin said, I was under the impression that a lit agent wasn't necessary for nonfiction books. Can you talk a little bit more about your decision to use an agent? Sure. I think that decision was really about the fact that for my book, the conversation started with the agent. I had been thinking about doing a book that was based on my essay, and that was a really big catalyst for it. So my process involved that agent. I think within the publishing world, as I have seen it and experienced it thus far, the agent is really key because they're the ones who understand who the editors are at all the major publishing houses, and what they're working on, what appeals to them, who they should send this to in a targeted way. And also on the other side, editors who are the ones acquiring those projects, they get tons of people who reach out, right, from incredible writers to their Aunt Sally who wants to publish a book. And so the only way they can weed through that is to have some sort of gatekeeper. And so they rely on agents to say, this is a great project. This is something that you should read and spend your time reading or put in your to read pile. Really interesting. Interesting that they all have a to read pile, because I guess we all do. Beth said, did you say you wrote The Art of Not Giving a Fuck? I did not. Mark Manson wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and Sarah Knight wrote The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck. I use those as comps, so as comparables. So in that section that I talked about, I combined two books, and I said, my book is like Atomic Habits meets The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I explained what was similar about Atomic Habits and what was similar about The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And why my book was a marriage of the two of them. So no, I did not write that. Tony Great House says, best presentation ever. Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, did you expect it to be profitable? Erwin says, did you expect it to be profitable? Such a great question, because the answer is no, right? I got an advance. So to be transparent and open about that, I got an advance. And so there, that sort of sets a threshold for how many book sales you have to do before you start getting paid more. I've got to sell a lot of books. So my expectation was that it would be published, that it would be available online and in bookstores, and that I would sort of start my book writing career. And to be honest with you, as someone who's worked in the creative industries for about 20 years now, it's important to set your expectations, right? The economics of all of this are very different than they used to be 20 years ago. The economics of movies are different. The economics of books are different. And so writers walking away with huge advances and selling millions of copies of their books is rare. Does it happen? Absolutely. But it is rare. And so you have to kind of be prepared for that mentally, to understand that, like, okay, you know, I'm in this for the money, or I'm in this for the craft, or I'm in this for the recognition, or, you know, being honest with yourself about why you're in it is really, really important. Um, Jim said, what was your pitch for marketing? So to be succinct about it, my pitch was that we were, and mine's really hard to market, right? Because the whole book is about getting off of digital and away from digital capitalism as much as you can, so you can take a deep breath. And so it was a really hard section to write, because I was basically saying, these are all the ways that we're going to market this book, or that I think you should market this book, that may not be digital, right? And so publishers were kind of like, what are you talking about? We have to use social media. We have to use the internet. My publisher said the exact same thing. We had meetings and meetings about it. Ultimately, I wound up doing a book tour because I physically wanted to be in the room with humans. That was the point of the book. And I'm prepping a longer tour for the end of next year to talk more to groups and speaking engagements. And I want the marketing of this book to be as sort of grassroots as possible. Does that mean I post on Instagram? I do post on Instagram. Does it mean that I don't use the internet? I do use the internet. And for anyone whose book is not about stepping away from the internet, you have a huge resource in social media and in the internet, and et cetera, et cetera. So um, Corey says, are you saying that you highlighted your low Instagram count to preempt the holes in your proposal, like in order to explain it away? No, I didn't. I just put in what my Instagram, following was. I put what my Medium following was, what my Instagram following was, what my Facebook following was. I didn't really comment on it. I just said, these are the numbers. I'm just telling you all that the reason, or I'm just telling you all that my Instagram was really low. So I don't want you to think that somehow the book deal happened because I had 21 million Instagram followers, right? I don't, and I didn't at the time. And actually, one of the things that my editor said to me was, we don't really find that a huge viral article always translates to book sales anyway. So again, that's subjective. Everyone's going to have a different opinion about it. But I just want you to know, as someone who's, come here for advice or insight, that ultimately it wasn't because there was this huge social media following. Did the agent reach out because of the success of one of my essays? Yes. But it was really about voice. It was really about the work. I'm sort of saying that to distinguish that from, oh, this guy just had a huge social media following. I didn't, Harris posted the first chapter from my book. If you want to download it, the link is in the chat. Thanks, Harris. That's the introduction. Where is it okay to publish part of the book before submitting to publishers? Beth, the answer is nowhere. They don't want a book that has been published somewhere. So I had to be really careful about this. Just for clarity for everybody, Beth is asking, like, where can you put the work before you then go pitch a publisher or an agent? My advice personally is, don't put it anywhere, because what you're doing is you're already publishing it. Even if it's on Medium, you're exposing people to it. What I did is I exposed people to the type of work that I do. I was writing essays on Medium that were generally commentary on modern society and social commentary, and politics, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no word for word translation into my book. There might be a line or two that just is in my brain because I can't, it's a worm and I can't get it out. But for the most part, right, like I kept them separate because anything that was going to go in the book needed to go in the book and not be exposed anywhere else. Um, for clarity, that's different than what I said earlier about to Julie about putting her already published manuscript, I'm sorry, book, or a section of an already published book on Medium. I think that, personally, my opinion is that that's okay. Um, I'm working, this is Lachelle. I'm working on a fiction chapter book focused on climate. Anything that you'd recommend different from what you talked about today for your nonfiction? Um, I think it's really important to get advice from people who have been down the road you want to go down. And so, I've published one nonfiction book with a traditional publisher, and I've published one nonfiction book self-published as an ebook. I would reach out to your network as best you can, or I can help you to do that, to find someone who's published a fiction book. There's plenty of people in my world, and I'm assuming in your world, if you're a writer, who may have done that, and their recommendation would probably be more accurate than mine. But what's different is that for fiction, you're writing the whole book, right? And so you're going to publishers and agents and managers with a manuscript. Julie, my husband is anti-internet, so I was trying to do all this marketing interaction with the publisher while going to school full time and starting my own accounting business. Phew. Hey, cheers to you, my friend, because that's really hard to do, and we're all doing the best we can every day. How long did it take you to get an agent? LA Struck said, how long did it take you to get an agent? I just because I think it's helpful to you to hear. I've been looking for agents for 20 years, right? I'm 47. I'll be 47. I'm 46. I started looking for an agent when I was 22 with work out in Los Angeles for TV writing. I have had so many conversations with agents. I have knocked on their doors. And the irony of that is that I got an agent when I wasn't looking, and I got an agent when someone came to me, as opposed to me going to them. That's not what I recommend. I recommend knocking down the doors, right? Putting yourself out there, putting your work out there. But it's taken a very, very long time on my end, which is something my mother loves to joke about, that I'm 46 and I finally got an agent, which is a ridiculous statement in many ways. People get agents when they're 60, people get agents when they're 70, some people work an entire lifetime. Anyway, larger conversation. Yeah, Christine Goodman says, I've spoken with agents who want the memoir done first. I have too. And my next book, I'm writing completely without a sale first, because my agent thinks it'll sell better if it's already written. So an important clarification. Vanessa said, what was your email again? I'm going to put it in here so that you have it. First of all, oh, that's not how you spell my name. I should know how I spell my own name. Okay, so that's my website, and then my email. Okay, is there. Again, you're welcome to email me. I may not get back immediately, but I will get back, and happy to be helpful if I can in any way. I admire your persistence. Thank you. It is nothing if not persistent. Sandra. Oh, okay. I lost my place in this line of questions. How do I get an agent as a poet? Beth, I wish I could answer that for you. I don't have a great answer for you. Again, my advice is to always take advice from people who have been down the road you want to go down specifically. So I would reach out to poets. And if you don't know any poets, I would go to every poetry department in every major university and look up their contact information and get in touch and see if they'll have a conversation with you. Maybe this goes without saying, but it's also important to say, and I find that this is true in film and in books. Anyone's willing to give you 10 minutes, right? They really are. And we live in a time where you can reach out, or at least try to find contact information for a lot of people. And, I have found in my entire creative career that simply dropping them an email to say, hey, this is who I am. I know you're busy. Can I grab 10 minutes with you for, to pick your brain? People have always responded positively, or they've ignored you. But like for the most part, people have responded positively. And now with Zoom, they don't even have to leave their house, right? Like it used to be that if you were asking somebody for their time, you'd have to meet them at a coffee shop. You would have to, it was like an hour at least, if not 2 hours of their time. With Zoom, it's 10 minutes, right? Can you give me 10 minutes in your calendar? Do you mind? I'm a poet. I don't know many poets. I see you're a successful poet. Can I pick your brain for 10 minutes over Zoom? I would be very shocked if no one answered, or if someone said, go away. Do they fund your book tour? Such a great question, Beth. So I'm going to tell you what happened, and here's how it went. Because of the pandemic and because of the changing economics of publishing, my publisher had a really, sort of direct conversation with me and said, we're not doing a book tour. And even though we had this conversation about my book and what was unique about marketing my book, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, look, we just don't see people showing up, right? Like all the major chains, all the major independent booksellers are telling us that they're having a hard time getting people in the room. So we don't want to pay for this tour to have you go all over the place and not have anybody show up. Also, nobody knows who you are, right? like no one knows who I am. So it's not like you're, putting an ad up or putting an email out saying like, come watch Oliver Berkman, for example, or, do a Q&A at this bookstore, or James Clear, or Sarah Knight, or any of these people, right? Like no one knows who I am. So what was the point in doing a book tour if I was going to go to Idaho and no one was going to show up, right? Anyway, so what I did was I was really committed to going around town, around the country, because ultimately I had been in my apartment for like a year and a half during the pandemic, and then I was at a coffee shop alone for another year and a half writing this book. It had been like 3 years before I really visited friends and family and colleagues and went anywhere besides New York City. So I just went and I planned it myself. And I reached out to bookstore owners, and I said, hey, independent bookstore owners, and I said, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to come by and do an event at your store. I don't know many people in your area. If you'd be willing to promote it, I'd be willing to come and speak, or do a signing, et cetera, et cetera. And I set the whole thing up. I was kind of the producer of my tour. And ultimately, my publisher said, you know what? Send me the budget. I think we're going to pay for it. I'm not sure that they want you to know that information, but I share it with you in the privacy of this Zoom, so that you know that persistence like that sometimes does pay off. And it wasn't really that expensive ultimately. I slept on couches and visited friends and stayed with family. But ultimately, they wound up giving me a per diem for those days to go out and talk about the book, which I found really helpful, really supportive. They came back to me and said, we want to support what you're doing. We know you're going anyway, let us know what this looks like financially. And it was really cheap. Not nothing, but I wasn't spending $20,000, $30,000 touring the country. I was sleeping on a friend's house in Virginia, and then going to the bookstore. What I did find hard was getting programmed at some of the really big bookstores. Some of the really big bookstores, independent bookstores, have programming teams and event teams, and they book up like 6 months in advance. So my biggest takeaway from the process of publishing the book was to start early, because I was coming to the table like 6 weeks before the pub date, being like, can we do an event when my book launches? And people were laughing at me because, they had been booked up for months and months and months. So I hope that answers your question, Beth. Annette said, did you have the idea for the article first and decide to write a book based on the comments? So the way that it happened is I wrote this article. It was not my first article. I had been writing on Medium for a couple of years, but not writing consistently. I loved Medium. I wrote the article. It's called Prepare for the Ultimate Gaslighting. Many of you may have read it. And I posted the link to Facebook. So it actually went viral on Facebook, pointing to Medium, going to Medium to read, and then it wound up going viral on Medium. So there's a lot to be said for promoting your work on other platforms and driving people to Medium. But I did write the book based on the article's success, right? Because I had been writing a number of articles, and some of them are book worthy and some of them are not. But I will tell you that the book is not really about the article. Ultimately, we changed the book so many times because the political situation was changing and the social situation was changing. So the idea of please unsubscribe, thanks, was really just a thread in the original proposal, and it wound up becoming the book ultimately. So time check, we're at 3:17 Eastern. There's still a lot of people in the room. I'm thrilled you're here. I'm going to keep answering questions because I appreciate that you're here and we're having a good Medium day, but I don't want to take away from your Medium day experience. So if there are other sessions that you want to go to, thanks for being here. I'll go another 10 minutes and then we'll wrap up. Would you please resend the book's first chapter? Oh, sure. So it's on Medium. It's on my Medium profile. Bear with me. I am my own assistant today. Okay, so if you go to my profile on Medium, which is at Julio Vincent, it is, and you scroll down, it is called Book Excerpt. And I'm going to put it in the chat now so you can see it. There you go. Beth said, we're on break. Oh, Deborah said, I like your writing so much. Thanks, Deborah. Gotta go. Thanks for being here. Great. Sandra said, book clubs and writers group meetings in your local area start the word of mouth rolling. Totally true. Your writing community is your best first stop for promoting any of your work. Did you work another job while writing your book? Katerina, great question. I have worked so many jobs. I've been a freelancer for about 20 years, and so I'm always working on multiple projects. I've got a lot of things on my desk at any given moment, and I force myself to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or 10 to 6, as much as I possibly can. And I sort of ping pong from project to project, depending on sort of where things are. Some of them are paid projects. Some of them are unpaid projects. So, I've done everything from copywriting to website writing to ghostwriting to editing to proofreading in the last 10 to 15 years. And those are all things that pay the bills. And then, when I can, I'm carving out Thursday to write, or, 12 to 6 to write on Saturday, or whatever it might be. So, Steve, did you have to supplement outside of freelancing to earn enough? I really appreciate these money questions because I feel like no one talks about money. It's true in the entertainment world. It's definitely true in the writing world. Like, where do people just spend 6 months writing and get paid for it? Like, it's all sort of silly, right? It's just kind of funny to me. Yeah, I don't come from money. I wasn't given a trust fund. There's no, the only advice I can give you is to work hard doing it. Carly's in the room now. So hi, Carly. If it's time for me to shut down, just tell me. Yep, supposed to end at 3. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Thank you to Medium. And again, this video and the deck will be available on my website, and the video will be available on Medium. So thank you. You're welcome. Be well.